And we're straight away getting you an update from Tuticorin, where more violence has been reported. What we're getting to hear is that 2 police vehicles have been torched. Remember, this after Section 144 has been imposed till the 25th of May, and we're given to understand that there have been reports of more violence taking place in Tuticorin. 2 police vehicles have been torched as we speak, and this is coming in just a day after 12 lives were lost after massive protests took place. Clashes between the police and the protesters took place. 12 lives were lost in that protest. 50 people were injured. Section 144, remember, has been imposed in Tuticorin, and despite that, in news reports coming in, more violence has been reported from Tuticorin. We'll be getting a quick update from our correspondent Pramod Madhav in just a bit, who's been tracking the situation there relentlessly. But this is disturbing news coming in at this point in time. More violence being reported at Tuticorin. Remember, the state police, the state government has been widely criticized for the manner in which the entire violence was handled, whether or not the standard operating procedure was followed, whether water cannons, tear gas shells were used before resorting to firing. Because remember, the state police is saying that this was the last resort, but were other measures resorted to before firing took place is also that is being asked right now. But focus on the update coming in. Pramod Madhav now joining us over the phone line. Pramod, more violence being reported from Tuticorin. Take us through the latest.
Well, that is very unfortunate that more violence has been reported from Tuticorin, and what happened is that today morning these family members and their relatives were assembled at General Hospital of Tuticorin, where the 11 bodies have been brought in and been placed over there. As we mentioned earlier itself, the family were not ready to accept the bodies, claiming that they wanted justice, and that itself caused a major ruckus inside, and people started to gather around that location. At that point, police had to once again resort to lathi charge, and it was reported that police also opened fire aiming at the sky. And when this news has got leaked, once again the outraged public and certain various pockets around Tuticorin, they started to protest, and one of these police vehicles has been torched.
All right, so you're saying that this emanated from the protest, the anger that the families of the deceased are showing by refusing to accept the mortal remains of their relatives. That ignited this fresh round of protests. The police, in order to contain the crowd, shot in the air, and this news report spread around Tuticorin, and that is where these vehicles were torched. Pramod, take us through exactly why were these torched. We are now also playing out visuals of those vehicles being torched. If you could in detail tell us, how was this allowed to happen, considering that the security presence is heightened at this point in time? The entire country is watching how the state police, the state government is now handling the aftermath. How can this be allowed to happen? Take us through the details.
Well, unlike what the DGP and the Chief Minister have stated, doesn't mean that it looks like the situation has come under control. And that's the reason you could see that arson is still happening in Tuticorin. And the thing is that today morning also, though the crowd has been very completely dispersed across this, the outer parts of Tuticorin, inside near the General Hospital, the situation was a little bit disturbing as well, because the parents and other relatives were present. They were not ready to accept the body. And and the word came out, various other relatives also came together, and people started to gather. And as I mentioned, at that point, police had to resort to lathi charge, and already the people were angry in that area because of yesterday's shooting and 12 people being dead. The news has started to spread across, and when this information also gathered, it only added to the momentum, and various pockets of areas, people have started to protest once again. This is how you saw these visuals over there, where these vehicles have been burnt right now. Once again, the cops have promised that they are trying to contain the situation, and this is this will be brought under control.
All right, so clearly, as was being claimed earlier, Pramod, the situation has not returned back to normal. Normalcy has not returned to Tuticorin, despite claims being made by the authorities that the situation has been contained. We understand Section 144 has been imposed in Tuticorin, and despite that, we are seeing the situation unfolding where 2 vehicles have been torched. Pramod, but we understand also at this point in time, Kamal Hassan had also earlier visited the local hospital in Tuticorin. He met with the family, the injured as well. MK Stalin is also expected to reach Tuticorin sometime today. And despite the security presence there being at the highest, as per our understanding. How is this being allowed to happen? And now, what is the state authorities doing? Has the security been heightened further? What are the measures that are being resorted to?
Yesterday itself, the highways were closed and battalions were brought forward from Madurai and Tirunelveli, and not just that, various DGP level officers were brought in, and major investigation and major talks were held in the collector's office. But the problem right now is that they are unable to contain the entire crowd, because imagine 20,000 people were participating yesterday, and this thing occurred, and the blame entirely has fallen over Tamil Nadu the police department right now, because they could not contain such a situation, knowing that the situation would turn volatile. Still, afterwards, after that, imagine today also they go ahead and resort to such actions instead of trying to disperse the crowd in various other ways. And it seems like on one end it is being said that the cops are not completely capable enough to, disperse the crowd, and on the other hand, the crowd is also becoming extremely angry and extremely unstable, and that's the reason these are happening right now. But still, the DGP and other police officers claim that first they want to contain the situation, and then they will go for a probe on it.
Well, understandably so, Pramod. People in Tuticorin are angry, especially the families who lost their loved ones in the violence that took place. 12 lives have been lost in that violence that took place. And at a time when in the aftermath, questions are now being raised on whether the police, crossed its brief, whether it followed the standard operating procedure, whether these deaths could have been averted in any way. These are trying times, clearly, at this point in time, for the state authorities to contain and to calm the situation, because as we are given to understand, this is now gaining momentum in terms of turning into an entire political story as well, because we have all politicians across the country also stepping in, sharing their views, and it's mounting more and more pressure on the state government. At this point in time, Pramod, take us through what exactly is taking place in Tuticorin. All right, I'm given to believe that Pramod is going to join us in just a bit, but those are the visuals. These are fresh visuals of this morning of police vehicles being torched. And what we are given to understand that emotions are running high at the hospital. That is where the mortal remains of the 12 deceased have been kept, and the families are refusing to accept the mortal remains. And what happened was that at the hospital, a sort of a chaos took place, and in order to contain that situation, the police resorted to lathi charge as well, is what our correspondent is telling us. And that news spread around the area in Tuticorin, and protests started emanating once again. So the situation once again turning volatile in Tuticorin, as was being claimed by the authorities that it has normalcy has returned in Tuticorin. That has now once again turned volatile. Those are the visuals of yesterday as well that we are playing out for you at this point in time, where 12 people lost their lives, and one can imagine why emotions are running high at this point in time, especially if we speak about the families of the deceased. Questions are being raised as to how or whether or not this entire situation was managed the way it should have been managed. We have Vidyashri Dharmaraj, Editor-in-Chief of the Kovai Post, joining us now with the phone line. Vidyashri, this is extremely disturbing. We are seeing fresh visuals of vehicles being torched. What is the government doing really? How can this be allowed to happen if Section 144 has been imposed, and in the aftermath when the security is already heightened?
The unrest seems to be simmering ever since, despite the fact that Section 144 has been imposed. The problem is that people seem to be congregating, and they're well aware that, there is a whole lot of people who are coming to the Tuticorin GH to visit the injured who've been admitted there. And despite the cops telling them that Section 144 has been imposed and you shouldn't congregate, the people, there's so much of unrest, frustration, which has been, tentative for years, that they seem to be coming there. And Kamal Hassan had also come a few hours back, and yes, he was also there, so he had his entourage, he had his people also there. So there's quite a lot of crowd in front of the GH, which the police has not been able to manage. And apparently the crowd has also been pelting stones on the cops, is what they say. And because they are trying to control the people and say that, they should not congregate in front of the GHL, they should leave the place. These people have been refusing to do that. And as a result, the violence seems to be continuing there despite 144.
All right, so the situation continues to be volatile despite the imposition of Section 144. Videshri, continue being with us. We also have Dhanya Rajendran of the News Minute who joins us over the phone line. Dhanya, many thanks for speaking to Mirror Now this afternoon. If you could update us to what you are hearing as far as the situation in Tuticorin is concerned. The authorities claiming that normalcy has resumed, but what are you picking up?
Well, I think it's a classic case of giving proper information. My reporters who are there at the Tuticorin General Hospital say that there was a lot of confusion from yesterday onwards as people were not allowed to go near the mortuary. Now, look, there are 11 dead bodies in the mortuary and there are around 70 people who are admitted with injuries. So there are families who have come in. They want to meet the people who are injured. There are other families who want to take the dead body away. So yesterday, the entire day, they were not allowed to go to the mortuary. Today also, there has been no communication whether postmortem has started, whether it's going on. At least someone should come and tell the families that, look, your signature is needed or not needed. So there is utter lack of information from the government, which is adding to the chaos on the ground.
So, Dhanya, in the aftermath also it appears that the government is failing to manage and contain this situation. It's a complete case of mismanagement where communication is not being given to the relatives, although we understand and understandably emotions are running high at this point in time because these families who've lost their loved ones are demanding action. They are refusing to accept the mortal remains of their loved ones as well. And at this point in time, we are getting to hear that police is once again resorting to lathi charge to contain the situation, and this is only going to further fuel the sentiments.
Well, I don't understand how the police is saying that Section 144 people cannot come to the hospital. I mean, there are so many people who are admitted there. What did the police expect? That the families will not turn up at the hospital? So like I said, there's a complete breakdown in information, and that's not it. What is the action taken against any of the police personnel? I mean, there is not even a promise that there will be action taken. Yesterday, the DGP gives out a press statement in which he justifies police action and simply trails off saying that a few people have lost their lives. So there is not even a promise of action against any of the police personnel. There is no reply. In fact, when the district collector came to the hospital today, people demanded to know who actually gave the go-ahead for the shooting yesterday, for the firing yesterday. So with no answers forthcoming from the government, the anger is bound to rise. I believe that for the Tamil Nadu government to actually manage the situation, they have to come out and answer a few tough questions.
Absolutely, Dhanya, and they're maintaining a stoic silence. There's been no clarity on what caused these deaths. Of course, speculations arrive that this happened due to the police, of course, crossing their brief. But those answers will only get in due time. Dhanya Rajendran, many thanks for joining in and sharing your inputs. We'd also like to thank Videshri of the Kowai Post for joining us over the phone line. Meanwhile, what has further fueled the sentiments is a video that has surfaced from the protests against the Sterlite copper plant which took place in Tamil Nadu. Now, this video shows what appears to be a member of the Tuticorin